Tonight, we're checking into Mercy Hospital, a place where the sick come to heal, but some never truly leave. Our story centers on room 412, a room with a history, a room that holds on to its past with a chilling grip. Imagine you're a nurse, like Sarah, working the quiet, lonely hours of the night shift. The hospital corridors are long, sterile, and unnervingly silent. But on the fourth floor, the silence is often broken by something else. It started subtly. A chair in room 412, a room that was supposed to be empty, would be found moved from its corner, placed by the window as if someone had been watching the city lights. Staff would move it back, chalking it up to a prank or an oversight. Then came the footsteps. Light, shuffling steps, always heard from inside the locked room. They would stop the moment anyone got close to the door. Most nurses learned to ignore it, to walk a little faster past room 412. But Sarah was new, and so was Marcus, a young security guard. They were about to learn that some doors are best left unopened. One night, the usual quiet was shattered by a new sound. It was faint, but unmistakable. A woman humming a lullaby, the melody drifting out from under the door of room 412. Sarah and Marcus stood outside, listening, a cold dread washing over them. It was a simple, sweet tune, but in the dead of night in that deserted hallway, it sounded like a lament. Marcus, ever the skeptic, insisted they investigate. Maybe a patient had wandered in, or it was a radio left on. Sarah hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to walk away, but she couldn't leave a potential patient unattended. Bracing themselves, they unlocked the door and pushed it open together. The humming stopped instantly. The room was plunged into darkness, but this time, Sarah's hand found the light switch and flipped it on. What they saw made her gasp. The bed, which should have been stripped and vacant, was perfectly made. We're talking hospital corners, crisp white sheets, and a pillow fluff just so. Neither of them had made that bed. It looked pristine, ready for a new patient. Marcus walked toward it, his steps slow and cautious. He reached out a hand, letting his fingers graze the sheets. "These are warm," he whispered, his voice tight. Like someone just got out of bed. That's when Sarah noticed it. On the bedside table, a glass of water sat, half full, with condensation still clinging to the outside, as if recently poured. And beside it, a pair of simple reading glasses. Her heart leaped into her throat. She recognized them immediately. "Those are Mr. Harrison's glasses," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Harrison had passed away in this very room just a week ago. Sarah remembered it clearly. She had personally bagged his belongings, including those exact glasses, and given them to his grieving daughter. There was no logical explanation for them to be here. Then how? Marcus started to ask, but he never finished his sentence. The lights went out. Not just in the room, but the entire floor was plunged into blackness. A moment later, the emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in an eerie, hellish red glow. And in that crimson light, they both saw her. At the foot of the bed stood a woman. She was elderly and thin, clad in a faded, old-fashioned hospital gown. Her long, gray hair hung limply around a face that was just wrong. It was too pale, too still, like a porcelain doll. Her eyes were wide open, but they weren't seeing. They were vacant. She was not alive. And then she began to hum that same haunting lullaby. That was it. Pure primal fear took over. Sarah and Marcus didn't scream. They just ran. They bolted from the room, down the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the red-lit hallway. They didn't stop until they crashed through the doors to the stairwell, collapsing in a heap on the landing. Security found them there 20 minutes later, huddled together, shaking uncontrollably, unable to form coherent sentences. When a security team went back to check on room 412, they found nothing out of the ordinary. The bed was stripped. The glass of water and the reading glasses were gone. The main lights were working perfectly, but the chair, The chair had moved again. This time it was positioned in the very center of the room, facing the door, as if someone had been sitting there, watching them, waiting for them to come back. Sarah put in for a transfer the very next day. So did Marcus. Neither of them could bear to work the night shift on the fourth floor again. But before she left Mercy Hospital for good, Sarah needed answers. She started talking to the older nurses, the ones who had worked there for decades, the ones who knew the hospital's secrets. And that's when she learned the tragic story of room 412. Back in 1987, a woman named Dorothy Mills was a patient in that room. She was dying of cancer, and every single night, her devoted daughter would visit. She would sit in that very chair, right by her mother's bedside, and hum soft lullabies to comfort her through the pain. One night, exhausted from her vigil, the daughter fell asleep in the chair. When she woke up in the early hours of the morning, her mother was gone. Not dead, gone. The bed was empty, the hospital gown left neatly folded on the mattress. But Dorothy Mills was nowhere to be found. A massive search was conducted. They checked every room, every closet, the basement, the roof. They never found her. They never found a body. Some speculate she became confused and wandered off, perhaps falling down a stairwell or getting lost in the labyrinthine basement of the old hospital. Others whisper that something much darker happened that night. But everyone who knows the story agrees on one thing. Dorothy Mills never truly left room 412. And she's still there, waiting for her daughter to come back and finish her lullaby. Sarah never worked another night shift in any hospital. The experience scarred her for life. But sometimes, late at night, she jolts awake from a recurring nightmare. In her dreams, she is always back in room 412. The emergency lights cast that terrifying red glow over everything. The woman, Dorothy, is standing at the foot of the bed, her dead eyes fixed on the door, humming that endless, sorrowful tune. In the dream, Sarah tries to run, but the door is locked. It won't open. And the chair, that old wooden chair, has moved again, blocking her exit. Then slowly, the woman turns her head. Her empty eyes fix on Sarah, and she speaks, her voice a dry, cracking whisper that sounds like dead leaves rustling. "Have you seen my daughter?" Sarah always wakes up in a cold sweat before she can answer, but she carries a deep, chilling fear that one day she might not wake up at all, because some places they hold onto the past like a vice. Some spirits are so lost in their grief they do and understand that it is time to let go. Mercy Hospital is still in operation today. Room 412 is still on the fourth floor. And if you ever find yourself wandering its corridors late at night, be quiet and listen closely. You might just hear it. The soft shuffling of unseen feet, the faint melodic humming. And if you're particularly unlucky, you might hear a faint, desperate question whispered through the door. If you open that door, you might see her. Standing in the red emergency light, her pale face a mask of eternal waiting, always waiting. Because in room 412, the night shift never really ends, and some patients, they never truly check out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there.